Go to Mr. Brad Sherman of California.
Aye. Mr. Russell, that legislation that the Chairman spoke of, is the administration going to veto it, or can't you tell us?
I can't speak to that.
I agree with the Chairman. We need a smart, fair trade policy. We have the largest trade deficit the world has ever seen, 20 years in a row. That's right. The best workers, the best entrepreneurs, the best scientists, the most vibrant economy loses to every nation 20 years in a row. Why do the best lose? Because for 20 years, we've had the worst trade policy in the world. And now we're asked to double down on it. We're told that our trade deficit gets better with free trade agreements. That's simply false. I asked to put in the record this statement from Public Citizen that shows a chart that supports the statement that trade deficits surge under FTAs. U.S. trade deficits have grown more than 425% with FTA countries, while declining slightly with non-FTA countries. Now, what is the confusion on the numbers? The proponents ask us, when we calculate the effective FTAs, to ignore NAFTA. That's like going to the zoo and ignoring the elephants. The fact is, when you include all our FTAs, including NAFTA, we have seen a 425% increase in our trade deficit with FTA countries. The other, NAFTA is the biggest thing we've done, perhaps in trade. The other biggest, almost equally big thing we've done is MFN for China. We were told that would have a de minimis effect on our trade deficit. The administration at the time told us a $1 billion increase. They were off by 30,000%. Every lobbyist in Washington whose job it is to create higher profits is telling us to vote for the deal. And every representative in Washington whose job it is to create higher wages is telling us to vote no on the deal. Maybe they're right. We're given the straw man that the choice is between the present system, where we go into negotiations with the lowest tariffs in the world, or going with a trade deal that's even worse. Real trade negotiation would be you start and you go in and you threaten to increase our tariffs. You put us on an equal playing field in the negotiations. You don't re-announce your surrender. Now we're told in Vietnam that we're going to get free access to their markets, except they don't have freedom and they don't have markets. We're told that they'll change their tariffs. The Communist Party of Vietnam controls every importer. There's not a single decision that will be made according to published rules or free access rules. Every decision will be made based on Communist Party policy, and they'll buy our goods to the extent they choose to, and it'll have nothing to do with this agreement. We're told that they'll have a right to organize labor unions because you can't arrest them for organizing a labor union. All you have to do is plant drugs on them and arrest them for that. Do we really believe that the Vietnamese government isn't going to plant drugs or come up with some other criminal charge against any effective labor leader? And then, Mr. Smith, imagine how difficult it's going to be to get U.S. support to enforce these labor agreements when you have the Nike lobbyist on the other side. This is the end of a chance for free labor unions in Vietnam. But we're told by Ambassador Rifkin not to ignore China, and we shouldn't. What does China get in this agreement? They get a deal that says never look at currency in trade agreements, but they get more. Go to the basement, look at the rules of origin. Goods that are admitted to be 50, 60, 70% made in China, finished in Vietnam or Japan, come into the United States on a fast track, duty-free. And that's when they admit they're 50, 60, 70% made in China. Obviously, the businesses are going to bring in goods that are 70, 80, 90% made in China. They slap a made in Japan sticker on it, bring it in the United States. What could be a better deal for China than free access to our markets and they don't even have to sign an agreement, which they wouldn't adhere to anyway. This is a deal worthy of a country that for 20 years has had a trade policy capable of mutilating our trade flows, even though we have the best workers, the best entrepreneurs, and the best businesses in the world. I yield back.
Ambassador Rifkin.
Congressman Sherman, I couldn't agree with you more that we have the best workers in the world, and all we're asking is a level playing field when we can let our workers compete evenly around the planet so that we can win, and we will win when given the chance. Sir, I'd like to address your comment about trade surpluses and deficits. For the record, in my mind, NAFTA is not an elephant in the room. In fact, no countries in the world buy more made-in-America products right now than Canada and Mexico. There's a $56 billion trade surplus in goods and services with NAFTA partners in 2013. This excludes energy. There's a 3 times surplus, 3 times more than before NAFTA.
Ambassador, if I can reclaim my time, you can't exclude energy. If we send $1 billion to Mexico for oil, that's $1 billion they could spend in the United States. Can't ignore NAFTA, you can't ignore energy. If we're able, why not? You can't ignore agriculture. You can't ignore cars. That would be the fact is that our trade deficit with Canada before the deal was $23 billion and after $58. Our trade deficit we had a surplus with Mexico before the deal. Now we have a $98 billion trade deficit. Those are the facts. You can hide NAFTA, you can hide oil. But the fact is when we ship money out to buy oil, we've got to be able to export something. And you can't say oil doesn't count.
If I may respectfully, sir, oil is as much about geography as it is about trade. But I hear you. You talk about agriculture. NAFTA has a $3 billion surplus in agriculture, and agriculture exports are 4 times what they were before NAFTA went into operation. Services with NAFTA, $44 billion surplus. Manufacturing, U.S. manufacturing exports went from $126 billion to $473 billion in 2013, between 93 and
Ambassador, we're both products of the L.A. schools. Where I went to school, they taught us to both add and they taught us how to subtract. If you increase exports by $2 billion and you won't tell us that you increase exports by $4 billion and you've increased the deficit by $2 billion and that's cost 20,000 Americans their jobs and cost them the American dream, then yes, you're going to increase exports, but you're going to increase imports more. And that's why our trade deficit with Canada is now $82 billion. It used to be $23. With Mexico, it's $99 billion. It used to be a positive $2. It's gotten $160 billion worse. And all you can do is say, oh, but we're increased agriculture exports by $1 billion or $2 billion. That's part of the $160 billion worse. Look at the bottom line.
And I would, sir, respectfully argue that that the trade deficit is obviously extremely complicated and is not solely directed to trade deals. There's a lot of other factors that go into
Ambassador, it's the proponents of the deal that cite the number.
In terms of the time.
My time has expired?
I think your time has expired.
I think my time has expired as well.
All right, all right. We're going to go to Eliana Ross-Layton of Florida.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Yes, we must counter China's expansion and increasing aggression whenever and